confidence is different than cocky, right?
Yes.
And if you borderline from confidence to cocky, that's where you get into some of that risky territory. But I think people want to hear from everybody who has a point of view, a confident perspective, and also confidence when they say, I don't know. That's a powerful statement versus being in a room or a meeting or a job interview and then making up an answer. I mean, people have been around the block too, and they've interviewed for jobs and they might be able to smell some of the BS too. So saying you don't know or you're not sure is actually a much better answer than trying to BS your way through something.
Can you say more about that? Because I think the vulnerability to be in a room where you're being paid for your smarts and to raise your hand and say, I actually don't know the answer can, I think you can ingratiate yourself to other people. People can appreciate like somebody who's a leader saying, I don't have all the answers.
I think it's an important lesson. I think sometimes as leaders, you're looked upon to always have all of the answers. So I think as a leader, because of your title or the things that you've accomplished or how long you've been there, I think sometimes the leader walks in assuming he or she has to know the answer. What I have found is the best leaders can actually say, what do you think? I'm actually not sure. Tell me more. And I think that vulnerability, as you called it, which is an unbelievably powerful word, that vulnerability is a tough pill to swallow sometimes, but I think it's desperately needed in the corporate world, in the business environment right now, because with the world changing so fast, how does anybody really know the answer? They don't. I think we're all better by saying, I don't know. Do you have a perspective? And how disarming is that when the leader then says, do you have a perspective? And they actually want to hear from you. That to me makes that leader and follower relationship unbelievably strong. But it isn't always the case. You know, sometimes you get into the meeting and the vulnerability sort of leaves and you have to check yourself. But I really think it's powerful if you can defer sometimes to the power of the group and let others chime in, because you're not always going to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, it's probably going to come from other layers deep within the org. And that's the beauty of working in small, medium, and large companies. You just never know where that idea is going to come from.
Yeah, we've had Jim Cook on the podcast a couple times. He was former CFO at Mozilla, first 100 at Intuit, and one of the co-founding team members of Netflix. And he has this framework where as a leader, you say, this is what we do know, this is what we don't know, and this is when we think we will know. And like the concept of bringing people under the tent and showing them you don't have all the answers, but you're treating them like an adult and also asking them what they think, that can be something that builds a lot of camaraderie.
I think it's a really great thing to think about, because that bringing people into the tent really builds momentum for inclusiveness. And I know that, you know, people get nervous when we start using words that allow everybody to have an opinion on everything when you're trying to move a business forward. But that inclusiveness of thought goes a long way, where people just can and want to be heard, and creating that space for people to be heard and share their ideas, I think is a really powerful tact.
Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, LOL. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.